Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
In the race to State House, 4 aspirants cleared by IEBC.
Out of integrity suits, Raila Kalonzo and Mudavadi dropped.
And the moment we get the report officially, we shall start investigations.
CDF misappropriation, culprits to face prosecution.
Chanting for recognition, Kwale's best school not right.
It is the 29th of January and the race is beginning in earnest. The IEBC has begun the final chapter in what promises to be an epic political battle come March the 4th.
Now, earlier today, the electoral body cleared Martha Karua, James Ole Kiapi, Peter Kenneth and Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi to run for the top office. And tonight, we are live in studio with Mudavadi. And for a preview, we can now cross over to our analysis studio where Louis Otieno is all set for that conversation. Louis?
Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Linda. Good evening. We promised that we will not slacken. The pace is still high. KTN promised you shall meet the potential president on the station, and tonight we carry on with our promise, and today you will meet Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. Just say a quick hello to your viewers.
Good evening, and I'm seeking your vote to become the 4th president of the republic.
Well, there you have it. In a short while, after the day's headlights, we will have a discussion. We will meet Mudavadi, after which you will then decide, does he get your vote to be Kenya's next president? This and more after Eric and Linda go through today's highlights.
Well, looking forward to that interview. Thank you very much, Lou. And welcome to this program. Good evening, American Zoka.
I'm Linda Ogutu. Now, the race to State House has entered the final stretch, with several presidential candidates being cleared by IEBC to seek the presidency. 4
aspiring presidents presented their papers this morning, while 2 others are scheduled to do so tomorrow. KTN's senior reporter Aaron Ochieng reports about the scrutiny of the process and the award of the former IEBC nomination certificates to vie.
With slightly over a month to the general election, IEBC is setting the stage for the election of the country's next chief executive. Martha Karua, Peter Kenneth, James Ole Kiapi and Musalia Mudavadi have been given a go-ahead by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to vie for the presidency of the country. The 4 presented their papers to the commission, and after a scrutiny that was led by the commission's chair, Isaac Hassan, they got the green light.
I think you have brought all the requirements under the law.
Unlike in the past, where presidential candidates were allowed to present their papers together with their supporters, the rules changed and IEBC only allowed top party officials to accompany the presidential nominee and their running mates. It is also the first time that presidential candidates are required by law to name their running mates ahead of the election. Karua, who was the first of the 4 to present her papers, was flanked by her running mate, Agustin Lotodo.
I want to assure you that I, my running mate and the party will abide by the laws of Kenya.
Second to face IEBC was Eagle Alliance Peter Kenneth, who says time for meaningful change in the country has come, and him together with his running mate Ronaldo Sumba are right place to turn the tables.
We want to play this game together so that we instill confidence in the electoral process.
Restore and Build Kenya presidential candidate James Ole Kiapi, together with his running mate Winnie Kinyua, were the 3rd to seek IEBC's clearance to run for the presidency. Kiapi asked the commission to intervene on the way posters have been rating candidates, saying it was inaccurate and should be stopped.
There is a concern about polls that are used presently to almost render some of the candidates irrelevant, because if you already decide that this is going to be a competition of 2 or 3 individuals, then it makes a mockery of the whole process of democracy.
Musalia Mudavadi and Jeremiah Kioni, representing the Amani coalition, were the last to present their papers today. Wednesday morning will be the turn of Uhuru Kenyatta of Jubilee Coalition and Raila Odinga of CORD, among other contenders. Aaron Oching, KTN Prime.
Well, and that story brings us to a big question tonight, and we are asking you, are you happy with the IEBC's handling of election preparations so far? The question again, are you happy with the IEBC's handling of election preparations so far? You know the drill by now. Send your brief comments beginning with a yes or a no to our SMS number 8040, and we'll surely sample your comments at the right end of this live newscast. Over to you, Linda.
Right, as NARC, Kenya, Amani, RBK and the Eagle Alliance got clearance, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, CORD, was unveiling a unified campaign team that will traverse the country to popularize the Raila Kalonzo ticket. The Jubilee Alliance, on the other hand, took their campaigns to various parts of Nairobi, drumming up support for the gubernatorial and senatorial candidates. Sophia Wanuna with the details of the campaign trail.
There are 33 days to go to the March 4th general election, days that will be busy for those seeking elective positions as campaigns intensify. For the Jubilee Coalition, it was a day of roadshows across Nairobi that culminated in a rally at Dandora grounds. The message: vote in candidates from the parties that make up the Jubilee Coalition come March 4th, 2013.
Sisi tumekubaliana ya kwamba Nairobi hii itabadilishwa na serikali ya Jubilee.
It was also an opportunity to drum up support for the coalition's gubernatorial candidate Ferdinand Waititu and his senatorial counterpart Mike Sonko.
Si Sonko anastahili na ametosha. Gavana wenu hata akisemekana anatupa mawe, alikuwa anatupa mawe kwa niaba yenu.
Elsewhere, in a bid to inject youthful vigor in their vote hunt, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, CORD, today unveiled CORD Effect, a team that will traverse the country drumming up support for a Raila presidency.
We are up to the task, and we will undertake this task. We have repeatedly asked about this narrative, this very misleading narrative about youth, and this is something we will keep on reiterating. Before you talk about how youthful you are, first of all, demonstrate to Kenyans what you did with your youth.
Yesterday, we unleashed some of our ideas, and we are going to continue to show Kenyans that we mean business.
The team, which will be led by Sports Minister Babu Namwamba, will hold roadshows, town hall meetings, and make appearances on television and radio shows to campaign for the coalition. After getting clearance from the IEBC, members of the Amani coalition, led by Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi, pitched camp in the CBD. In a rally at the Jivanjee Gardens, Mudavadi assured Kenyans that if elected, he will work towards ending insecurity.
I will not divert from my mission of bringing Kenya together. I will provide a leadership which is not distracted and removed from our midst. I want to inspire confidence in all of us that tunaweza.
Jubilee and CORD flag bearers Uhuru and Raila, respectively, are expected to hand in their nomination papers to the IEBC Wednesday. Prime Minister Raila Odinga will officially launch his presidential campaign at Uhuru Park after presenting his papers. Sophia Wanuna, KTN.
All right, Chief Justice William Mutunga is calling on all agencies under the National Council on Administration of Justice to execute their roles fearlessly to ensure a free, fair and peaceful election. Speaking while addressing a special session of the Council on the forthcoming elections, Mutunga said that a lot has been learned from 2007 and there is no room for failure come March 4th. The Council's mandate is to ensure a coordinated, efficient, effective and consultative approach in the administration of justice and reform of the justice system.
We're going to let Kenyans know what the challenges are, because there are challenges that I think the country ought to know. And but the commitment is unshakable. In fact, all we are asking ourselves as institutions, this question, what does it benefit a country to have a beautiful constitution and lose it to fraudulent elections? Or what gain is personal and ethnic esteem in a country rent apart, by violence?
Right, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will recommend the prosecution of all MPs from the 10th Parliament who are guilty of misappropriating CDF funds during their tenure. The Commission says it will study an audit report on the use of the Constituency Development Fund by the National Taxpayers Association and propose legal action against those involved. KTN's Patrick Amimo reports on the use and misuse of CDF around the country.
The President is clearly in contravention of the Constitution and the law in appointing a person in the position of Director of CID against the advice of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority.
It is the case that the Police Service Commission is disobeying a lawful order from the Independent Policing Oversight Authority in respect to Mr. Ndegwa Mohoro. In respect to what we are going to do, as my colleague Mr. Kema said, we have many options, including the legal option. So we'll be consulting with our legal advisors to determine whether we are able to exercise that.
Right, we do apologize. That is definitely not the story that we have just read for you. Of course, you're fixing that. We'll get you the correct story. Let's move on to the results that were released yesterday. And the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education Examination results released yesterday had a special meaning for one public school in Bungoma County. Despite having the largest number of candidates, Bungoma DEB Primary School not only secured the second position in Bungoma County, but also produced the two top-ranking students. The school officials say this is a product of efforts and teamwork against the odds. Wilkis Tanyabwa reports.
A day after the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination results were released, Bungoma DEB Primary School is still celebrating. Cynthia Sifuna Napwire, the number 6 candidate in the county with 416 marks out of a possible 500, was a pupil here. As was Asiba Emmanuel Sissa, who scored 406 marks in the exams. The public school was ranked second in Bungoma County and first in Bungoma South District, but the teachers would celebrate with one eye on the clock, for there was work to be done. At any point in time, on every teacher's desk in the staff room sits a large stack of exercise books, waiting to be marked. In 2012, the school registered 341 candidates. This year, the number of Standard 8 students has risen yet again.
2013, this school has 380 candidates.
The student population now stands at 2,862. It is a number that exerts pressure on the school's 50 teachers and makes learning an interesting experience. It is usual for 3 students to share a desk, while those who miss out on desks are forced to find sitting space on the floor. Teachers watch keenly for signs that any student is lagging behind, for they do not have the luxury of space to enforce their authority. In the 2012 KCPE, Bungoma DEB had a mean score of 323.92. Its performance the reason why 40 more parents have applied for positions for their children in Standard 8 this year. If their applications are successful, in 2013, the number of candidates shall rise to 420.
It is not about the many candidates that matter. It's about what teachers and the stakeholders put it together to ensure the results are good.
But the fact that they have beaten such odds is the reason why the students and staff of Bungoma DEB Primary School are celebrating long after the rest stopped. For all too soon, it shall be time to knuckle down to hard work in a bid to attain the feat once more. Wilkis Anyabwa, KTN Prime.
All right, so we're still on that story, and a school in Kwale is crying foul after missing out on the rankings by the Kenya National Examinations Council, despite performing well at the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education exams, whose results were announced yesterday. Word of Life Christian Academy had a mean score of 371, which is the best in Kwale County, but instead St. Mercy was ranked first, was ranked first with 347 marks. Our senior coast reporter, Ferdinand Omondi, visited the school to verify the facts and find out the reasons for the anomaly.
It is not every day that you hear this chant among young uniformed boys and girls, but the pupils of Word of Life Christian Academy in Ukunda took the cue from society to protest in this manner after posting results worthy of national recognition and getting none at all.
Our mean score right now as we stand is 371.19. It is not matched anywhere in Kwale.
According to the list published by the National Examinations Council, St. Mercy was the leading school in Kwale with a mean score of 347. Word of Life Academy's 371 points is 24 higher than St. Mercy's and should in fact have been ranked first.
We are actually second in Coast Province, if we can talk about the region. And better than that, when we look at ourselves in the light of the entire nation, we are ranking number 40.
Kwale as a county performed very dismally. In fact, it was ranked 43rd out of 47 counties. But Word of Life Christian Academy proved to be a giant among dwarfs with a very sterling performance, and yet they were not recognized, and the sense of injustice here is palpable.
In a county like Kwale, where the performance is always low, it is very difficult for somebody to miss out a mean score of 371.
All 16 students who served their exams here scored 329 marks and above, with the top scorer being Maureen Mukami, who amassed 400 marks out of a possible 500. They now want the concerned persons to appreciate the anomaly and make the necessary corrections. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Kwale.
Ferdinand Omondi there with questions being raised by a school at the coast. Of course, that is a story that he will follow up for you. Let's now bring you that story we told you about by Patrick Kamimo on the use and misuse of CDF funds around the country. And the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will recommend the prosecution of all MPs from the 10th Parliament who are guilty of misappropriating CDF funds during their tenure. The Commission says it will study an audit report on the use of the Constituency Development Fund by the National Taxpayers Association and propose legal action against those involved. KTN's Patrick Amimo now has that story.
The National Taxpayers Association released its last report of a series of assessments that started in 2008 covering CDF-funded projects. The final report that audited the remaining 28 constituencies reveals that 40.5 million shillings allocated to the CDF kitty in the last financial year was unaccounted for, while abandoned projects cost the taxpayer 22.2 million shillings. The report says poor procurement systems are to blame for pilferage of the CDF kitty. Of the bottom 5 constituencies where the CDF kitty was poorly managed, Fuisero constituency in Kakamega County wasted a whopping 58.9 million shillings out of a total allocation of 72.5 million shillings. Isiolo North constituency misused 29.6 million shillings of the CDF kitty out of a total of 70.2 million shillings. It was represented by the Minister for Livestock, Mohamed Kuti. Rongo constituency in Migori County wasted 17.9 million shillings out of a total of 73.1 million shillings. The outgoing MP is Minister for Public Service, Dalmas Otieno. Ikolomani constituency is listed as having wasted 27.4 million shillings out of a total of 116.7 million shillings that was allocated to the CDF kitty. The outgoing MP, Boni Halwale, is now eyeing the Kakamega County senatorial seat. Hamisi constituency squandered 15.7 million shillings of the CDF kitty from a total allocation of 69.2 million shillings. The immediate former MP George Khaniri now wants to contest Vihiga County senatorial seat. The anti-corruption body says MPs guilty of misusing CDF funds would be prosecuted.
And the moment we get the report officially, we shall start investigations and carry out our own investigations also to confirm what they have brought up on board. And of course, if need be, if there are facts, we'll forward the same to the DPP for prosecution. Even if somebody has been given a nomination certificate, and even if he has served even 6 months or 2 months, and we have evidence that this person has actually acquired unjust wealth, we will bar him at that point.
The top 5 best performing constituencies of the 28 in this final survey were Belgut, Runyenjes, Galole, Magarini and Wajir West.
Kenyan taxpayers must use a report to make their judgment on how they want to see the leadership in their constituencies, in their counties.
And we want to call upon the other organizations like CASA to follow the details, because where the problem is not in terms of the CDFC committee, it is in terms of the project management committee, whereby they don't have the capacity to monitor.
The report also revealed a worrying trend among CDF committees who demand a percentage of the money awarded to projects before approving release of funds. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Just a reminder to a big question tonight. We are asking you, are you happy with the IBC's handling of the election preparation so far? If you didn't get that question, here it is again. Are you happy with the IB's handling of the election preparations so far?
Of course, send your brief comments beginning with a yes or no plus a small comment to SMS number 8040. We will sample your comments at the end of this live newscast. You're watching KTN Prime. Many thanks indeed for staying with us. Louis Oteno is hosting one very important person in the other studio, Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi, UDF presidential candidate, the man who hopes to become Kenya's next president come March 4th this year. Let's see how that goes. Of course, that is an interview that will come your way later on in this bulletin. But thank you so much for staying with us this far.
You do not want to miss that. We'll take a short break, but coming up just ahead, lessons from Rwanda as it emerges as a preferred investment destination. Stay with us.
Well, indeed, you're watching your election station. KTN Choice 2013 will be covered comprehensively as we have begun already, and we continue to do so. The pace remains high. Tomorrow, remember, we shall be at Strathmore. The governors will be asking for your vote. You will decide on this live show. Tonight, I'm very happy to have Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, who's also been out there saying, make me your president. I'm very pleased to have you on board tonight.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you. It's been a time of high activity. And how did you feel today, starting with what you did last, just presenting your credentials?
Well, I think it was a very important moment for me and indeed for the Kenyan people, because they could see live a process that will be determining the fate of this country. That means that the IEBC was openly receiving in the eyes of the public our credentials, our papers, and able to verify at that point that all your documentation is right. And therefore, all I can say is that one had to be very thorough, even in the first place, because it would be very embarrassing for you to go there and then you're told that your documentation is wrong, and therefore you have to step aside and come back later with everything in order. So I found it very challenging.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of planning definitely going into this, and this is a huge step. It's a milestone towards the election date. What is that? Was it a culmination of some of the plans you've been making? Did you feel, now this part is done, I can now concentrate on one day only?
Yes, I think it was important that that is done, and it helps people to concentrate, because one of the things that has actually evolved from our new process in terms of election laws and what is expected is that our process has become highly technical. A lot of technical issues have got to be sorted out. And again, the process that Parliament went through towards the end in trying to beat deadlines so as to have all the election legislation in place and regulations in place left a lot of room for loopholes. And indeed, these were discovered as we moved along. So I would say that this has been a very technical process. If you are to ask me, I would say that these laws, these regulations will need review after this process.
Tell me about preparedness. Are you convinced, are you comfortable that administratively Kenya is ready for the elections, that the people concerned are ready to administer what is needed for the elections? Are you confident in terms of process that we are ready?
Well, I think there are serious challenges that still lie ahead. If you follow what we went through to arrive at the date of March 4th, there was the aspects of litigation, people going to court and so forth. And then ultimately a court decision gave us the date, or rather the framework in which that March 4th does come into play. And everybody had thought that maybe we would be looking at August at that time. So when you look at it from that perspective, the electoral body has had to go through some crash program. They had challenges in the procurement of the BVR machines. They have reduced the number of inspection of registers. They have had to go through a lot of changes and adjusting dates.
Dangerous concessions.
So definitely, there were concessions that reflect that this was a crash program.
Right.
Okay, and in future, I don't think we should have that kind of arrangement. So I would say that the IBC is trying its best under extremely difficult circumstances. And where we are, because once we finish this process, the next thing that must come out clearly is that will the ballot papers be delivered on time? Will they be properly printed? These are extremely delicate issues that have got to be handled. Then there are challenges of security, the logistical aspect about distribution. We have seen shortfalls in terms of the time frame for civic education. So all these have not been very good indicators. But the fact of the matter is that the elections must be held by 4th of March, and the IBC is doing its best, and we hope that they'll deliver.
A lot of leaders pass off challenges the country is facing as growth of democracy in Kenya. Some even congratulate themselves on some of these things as they pass by. But do you think the nomination process, which happily you managed to not be in the thick of things, was it an honest exercise in terms of the growth of democracy heading towards an election?
It was a very challenging affair. I think no party has emerged out of this process unscathed. I think all political parties, particularly the major political parties, if I may call it that. But I can tell you that we have to change the way we nominate our candidates. No party is logistically, properly resourced to be able to handle a fully fledged nomination. Our nominations in some areas were like general elections. Now, clearly, we cannot say that we had trained returning officers the way the IEBC would train its staff to handle an election. So I strongly advocate for a review of the nomination process in this country, and we need to reflect on it very, very carefully, have sufficient time to develop it, consult with the Kenyans, consult with the political parties, so that the future of our political parties and the nomination process can be improved. We have seen it done in other countries. They have college systems which are well drilled, well prepared, people who are committed to their political parties, and the parties can either use that delegates process or sometimes do direct nomination. But here is a situation where parties told the people that you're going to have nominations. They could not get materials there on time. They didn't have sufficient security or afford security to deal with all those constituencies. And by extension, as a consequence, we saw in some areas there were physical confrontations.
Right.
So that is not a good signal for the nomination process.
Let me tap into your experience, having been in the field. You've seen the outside and the inside of leadership. What would you say of the caliber of leaders who are up for Choice 2013? Is it a good number of leaders who Kenyans should be excited to vote in? Are we seeing a group of leaders who, even if all of them will not come into power, but we have a good choice available to us as Kenyans?
I think it may be a little bit premature to make a judgment on this issue, because we have not seen the full complement of who are going to be governors throughout the republic, senators throughout the republic, members of parliament throughout the republic, or even the county assembly members. So to that extent, it might be presumptuous to jump to a conclusion that easily. But I would say that one of the things that may affect us is that towards the end of last year, when Parliament was in session, it fumbled on the element of the qualifications of candidates. Now, that maybe was not a very good signal, because it might affect the quality of leadership in some areas. So that is one aspect that one needs to look at. But I would say that it's the Kenyan voters who have an opportunity to make a difference, because we have seen the public vilify a parliament. We have seen the public vilify a local authority. All right? But surprisingly, sometimes, when you go to seek the votes and you're out of the public and talking to the voter, you find that the voter is tickled by very interesting characteristics. And non-technical stuff, and perhaps they they tend to evaluate their candidate more on the person's prowess in terms of the gift of the gab, and they don't go for the substance, and then they start lamenting. Right. So I can only appeal to these brothers and sisters of mine throughout the republic that please take voting seriously. Take it very seriously. It's not a chess game. It's serious business.
Right.
You're actually putting your life, your family's life, your children's life in for the next 5 years in somebody's hands, and you must ask yourself, what kind of hands am I doing this?
I hear them attribute to you that you're a safe pair of hands.
Precisely. I'm a safe pair of hands.
Tell me,
yeah,
where were these pair of hands 20 years ago? What were you doing 20 years ago?
20 years ago, I was building up my early times of my political career. I entered politics at the age of 29. To be more precise, 28 and a half. This was in 1989, after my father passed away. So I moved into politics from the private sector. And I was initially Minister for Supplies and Marketing. And then in 1992 elections, the cabinet was then formed in January 1993, and I became Minister for Finance, and I served for 5 years as Minister for Finance, all the way through to the elections of 1997. After that election, I became Minister for Agriculture. I subsequently became Minister for Information, Transport and Communications, and then Minister for Transport and Communications, and then Vice President for a short stint, a 2-month stint.
You spoke about that.
I have broken a record,
yes,
so to speak, as the shortest serving Vice President in this republic. Then in 2002, I did not win the Sabatia seat, so I stayed out for 5 years. Although I was offered a nomination, which I turned down, stayed out for 5 years and got re-elected in 2007-2008.
Right.
We have now served as a Minister for Local Government and also Deputy Prime Minister. So that can tell you the story about my public life. Of course, a lot of issues
In
and experience are in between.
What about
but
27? I'm trying to find out when did this bug bite you. And did you go in by default or by design? At 27 years of age, are you thinking,
28.
I'm going to go, no, that's when you went in.
Yeah.
But just before that, are you thinking leadership? Are you thinking I'm going to go in for competitive elective politics?
Well, let me put it, I got interested in leadership and politics because I come from a background where my father was involved in leadership, first as an educationist, and subsequently as a politician himself. So as his eldest son, I would take a keen interest in his job, what he was doing, how he was doing it.
Would he deliberately sort of talk to you about it?
Oh yes,
give comparisons to you and tell you,
yes.
you know?
We spent a lot of time together.
Yes.
I would accompany him on some of his trips. I would take up errands for him on matters of politics, and naturally I became interested. But of course, I was not prepared, so to speak, to take over at the age of 28 from him. Right. Because at that time, we were looking up to him, and we wanted him to continue his political career, and I my private sector career.
Right. The question has emerged several times. Is it a good thing that some of our leaders have relations in power, have had relations before, and has this skewed the deliverables or the way they behave towards the public? Has this had a negative influence on you, that your dad was in it, you followed suit? I mean, you look around at your peers, and some of them are grappling with the same issue, and some are being judged on the strength of that. But does it ever come to you that you walked into it, you didn't prepare for it, and you're just lucky?
I think I would like Kenyans to look at politicians as their equals. We are not a special breed, and this really needs to come out from the Kenyan psyche mind frame, that we are not a special breed. We are human beings, and we come out there to seek their permission, their endorsement before we take up the assignment. Now, this is absolutely important. Now, you may have certain advantages that arise out of
your
relations. All right, but that should not be the only basis of judgment when they're looking at you. We can have families of very good footballers. They all play well, but ultimately each one of them would have to go to that field and perform in their own right, and it will not be possible for you to just assume that because they come from a family of footballers that they're all good footballers. No way. So as we are in politics, some of us may be carrying the tag that our parents were politicians at one time, and therefore people tend to look at us differently. Sometimes they tend to think that we are unnecessarily privileged and so forth. Perhaps it's true, but
you flip-flopped into it.
Yeah, but I want to remind our fellows out there that even as we get new entrants into politics, maybe 15 years from now, their own children, their own descendants will be venturing into politics. So it is not a unique process. We have had families that are families of bankers. We have had families that are families of doctors. You know, so we must look at politics as a career, as a calling, like any other. But it's how we conduct ourselves that matters.
Have you been able to chart this path by yourself? There's been a lot of discussions about who's holding Musalia's hand now, who's boosting Musalia. I want to put up this strip, and I want you to look at it and tell me when the public sees these kinds of illustrations that probably suggest you always needed someone to hold your hand, or you always delivered at the behest of someone else.
Well, I've always needed God's hand.
Right.
Right? I've always needed God's hand in my politics. Now, as we move ahead, and the whole issue about political associations, political partnerships and so forth, we must appreciate that no politician is an island. All right? Now, I usually take this very calmly, and I say, there's nothing wrong in me declaring my ambition. And there's nothing wrong as I move across in my ambition to seek support and win the support of Louis Utino as we move across. It is not a crime. It is not a crime. In fact, the more support, the more people you carry along with you, the better. The more people come on board to support with you, the better it is for you, especially as you want to move ahead.
Do you not fear that some of the people you probably align yourself to, seek their support, work with them closely, do you not fear that their reputation may be the one which you're judged through, and maybe some of them didn't do too well in the eye of the public?
Well, in terms of politics, you'll come across different characters. We will seek support from everybody, of course, but we choose our friends very, very carefully. I will meet you, I will say hello to you, I will meet somebody else and I will say hello to them. But I have the value judgment that that friendship or that relationship can end there, and it cannot be carried over to more serious matters of state or governance. But that does not mean that I should ignore an individual. He's a citizen. If he stretches his hand to shake my hand, I will shake the hand. But I'll be able to move ahead. Now, I think where you are going is that people tend to think that I cannot stand on my own.
Why?
This is the argument they've always put across.
Why are you surrounded by this argument? Why does it continue to come up? Every time Musalia takes a step,
yes,
somebody's saying, who's hoisting him?
That's precisely the point. Right. These are fellows who do not understand me. They are fellows who have a notion, which I would like to disabuse tonight, that I stand on my own, I do my battles, I have friends, I also have enemies, I may put it that way, and it's all about how much mud can your opponents try and throw against you. But that should not deter me. It does not deter me. I keep on moving ahead, and I want to tell people that they should look at me very, very seriously. I'm very resolute in the decisions I make. I listen. I am somebody who trusts. I prefer to work in trust. If you betray my trust, then that's a different matter. But that is me.
So I'm just trying to understand, because you're very clear on how you chose your path. You're very clear on who you've chosen to surround yourself with. Why then does it continue being a discussion in the public when Musalia comes up, Mzee Moi comes up, Uhuru Kenyatta comes up, or the issue of whose support are you seeking this time comes up? Is this because of, like you say, you have a friendship with them, and people don't understand the extent to which you're friends? Or do you actually at some point appear to lean on them more than you should at any one time?
No, I don't think I lean on them in any manner that suggests that I cannot do my own battles or move across. I think let's be very, very clear here. And let's try and put this in perspective. Let's look at Kenya's politics and just go back a little. If you are to talk about the political leadership, particularly those who may be seeking the presidency today, or at least the top level assignments of this country, going back into history, you will find that Moi worked with Kenyatta, so did Kibaki, just as an example. They were friends in their own way. Then when you come to the Moi regime, everybody, literally, who is seeking the presidency today, with the exception of maybe Martha and Kiapi, at one time have worked with Moi, starting from Kibaki himself, who is the outgoing president. Kalonzo has been in Moi's government, Raila has been in Moi's government, I have been in Moi's government, Uhuru has been in Moi's government, Ruto has been in Moi's government. Peter Kenneth has also been in Moi's government. So from that perspective, let us be very clear that in this process, when a head of state has been there for 24 years, he's likely to impart or impact on so many lives during the tenure of his leadership. Now, going beyond that, we are now seeking the seat. I have interacted with Raila. I have interacted with virtually all the other people, Kalonzo and others who are there.
They don't speak up. They don't necessarily speak up and say, I am rooting for Musalia.
No, they don't.
Maybe this is the long-term relation that puts you in this picture.
But
when
Moi
says, I want Musalia to be president.
But let me put it this way. How many times has he ever said that he's rooting for me? Let's be very clear. How many times? I think the first time a statement like that has come out was just a few days ago. But prior to that, has he? In fact, if you follow carefully, in 2002, he was not rooting for me, but he was rooting for Uhuru.
We know that story.
Come on, so let's
Yes.
be realistic here.
Yeah.
So there's an exaggeration as to who supports me. All right. The other flimsy thing is the other game that they bring out all the time is that this propaganda came out that Kibaki is supporting me.
Right. I mean,
surely.
so many ghosts.
Kibaki has made his statement very clear. He's not supporting any particular individual, and people can go and contest, and he'll hand over to whoever the Kenyan people will have elected. So I tend to believe that these are people who are scared. They just don't, they get surprised at my potential. And when it comes out, they say, wait a minute, this is not the Musalia we know. Because they tend to assume that my humility in approach is a sign of weakness. It's not. That's my strength.
To the extent that they looked at you as a soft target, to the extent that they said you identified as being very close to your party leader when you're in ODM, and you are the perfect target to go to create this unity. To those who are looking at you and are still wondering about the question of why you left, what would you tell them? If it's still lingering in their minds, was he the target? Did he take money for it, as some have thought?
Oh, no. Who took money?
No, I mean, I'm not saying you took money. I'm saying the discussions that came up when they said, was he a target because he was the vulnerable one? He was one who could have been sponsored, perhaps, to leave and go to another party.
No. I think let's look at it very critically. It's a story I've told a number of times, but I'll repeat it for the sake of those who may not have
final
captured
clarity,
it.
I like that.
When I was in ODM, I brought out a few things, and I said, one, the party constitution then was undemocratic, because it was saying that if you're the party leader, then you're the sole presidential candidate. That means anybody else who would have intentions of vying for the presidency was not going to be allowed to vie for it. So I started saying that let us change these clauses and let us reconsider our nomination process. I talked about the need to have a collegiate system, and you can see it's beginning to bear, the results are beginning to show that what I was advocating, had we looked at it critically at that time, because in terms of the biggest difficulty in nominations, although I said all parties had their problems, but surely ODM had mega problems compared to others. And part of this is because some of the issues that I was trying to highlight at that time were not taken seriously. They were taken more as defiance against the party leader rather than the substance and content of what I was trying to bring out. Then when it was time for me to move ahead, it is because as we went through the process of saying let's amend that clause, people were pussyfooting, and they didn't want to do that. Now, after I had left, then they submitted the amendments so clearly, and that was sometime in October, that these amendments were now literally going through the mill. Now you tell me at that time, and if my intention was also to have a serious bid at the presidency, clearly somebody was making sure that I'm hemmed in and not be able to move forward. And that is why I made a decision to move ahead.
I think you've given super clarity on that, and you can see why I had to take you through those motions, so people understand that if you're looking at Musalia, you're not looking at somebody who is an iffy person and flipping the way you change parties. Let me take you now, let me look at actuality going forward now. Are we going to see your friends? Are we going to see your former college mates? Are we going to see your former schoolmates? Who are you surrounding yourself with as you want to lead this country? What are we going to see from Musalia's team going forward?
Well, clearly you will see a very broad team. Once in a while, yes, if your schoolmate merits, why not consider him if he's going to support you? But my friends cut across the entire country. At the same time, the leadership that I want to offer is a leadership that will embrace Kenyans from different parts of the country, all walks of life. I'll also make sure that it reflects, my leadership reflects what the Constitution demands. You must have proper gender balance on the people you're going to lead with. The team must be properly crafted and must be participatory. So this, I can tell you, they should expect.
But we should not fear that you'll just pick on your cronies and people who, because the country has suffered that. The country has suffered a good person potentially going forward and then surrounding himself with people who then become the subject of scrutiny.
But you see, those are people, that concern would be a concern if we were operating under the old constitution.
Right.
But remember, going forward, where we are going to be from 4th of March after the election.
The checks and balances.
When you are in office, you must be prepared to work with other people. The numbers of parliament are unknown now, but once they are there, all public appointments will have to go through public scrutiny, whether you're talking of the principal secretaries or you're talking of our ambassadors, you're talking of the cabinet secretaries, you're talking of other important positions. So clearly, you cannot get away with a system that would have nothing but cronies, unless your party is extremely popular to the extent that you can say that you'd have an overwhelming majority in a parliament of about 359 people. Now, that is not going to be easy to achieve for any political party or grouping.
Would you be targeting a situation where we have a runoff? Would that be helpful towards the kind of politics you want to see in this country?
If you are to ask me, I would say that Kenyans still have an opportunity to avoid a runoff. They still have an opportunity to avoid a runoff by making a choice that would be that would give the winner sufficient majority to move ahead without a runoff. Purely from a situation where the cost of the elections and the tension, they have an opportunity.
Right.
But politics being what it is, we also have to face the reality that there's a possibility there could be a runoff. Now, you asked me what would I look forward to. I'll say again, I look forward to an opportunity where we do not have a runoff.
Give me your areas of urgency now, going forward. We now have had a look at, we've had a peek at your past. We've talked about the challenges you've had in terms of perception and what people see you for. But hey, so Musalia makes office. Give me your areas of urgency where you'd want to fix things, get organized quickly, sort out. Are there sectors which are screaming for you to say, I'm jumping in and immediately I'm going to sort out? Is it industry? Is it reforms in terms of judiciary? Where do you want to start?
Let's be very frank here. One of the things that people must be prepared to face is that in the first few days, it's not going to be very easy to constitute a government by the very nature of the structures that were put in place and the constitution were put in place, because the executive must work very closely with Parliament, and we don't know how many times Parliament may refuse certain nominees before they eventually allow you to function fully as a government. So this will require very, very close consultation with the leadership that will have been elected to Parliament, so that everybody can get to work as soon as possible.
So if somebody is giving us 100 days, they're not being honest.
I think
in terms of ability to function.
I think we should be very, very realistic here. Yes. That whoever takes over government will go through a very rigorous process of constituting that government in the first maybe 2 months or so, with a CISO process in Parliament. We have already seen signs of it in the previous appointments. So we must be prepared to face up to that. And I want to be very candid. I want the viewers who are watching and those who are listening for them to really come to terms with this reality. Anybody saying that I will have my government in 2 weeks, I'll have it in 1 week, is not telling you the truth.
Right.
All right.
So when you sort that out.
So you sort that out, but in the process, there are issues of security. These have become very prominent once again. They must be given a lot of priority. We still face the threat of the Al-Shabaab problem, and we must anticipate that because a new government will be coming into place, there could be an attempt by the terrorists to try and test the resolve of this new government.
Right.
All right. So these are areas that will require a lot of clear and careful attention. We will also have to do a lot of national healing.
Right.
Within the early days. Why do I say this? It's glaring at us in our faces. If you look at what is driving some of the coalitions that we have, and I'm not shying away from saying this, when you look at the politics by some of the people within the CORD and the politics of some of the people in the Jubilee, you can sense high levels of tension.
We're being set up for conflict.
That's right. And to me, this is what we need to safeguard, because we should not go back to the ballot on the basis of trying to settle a score against somebody else. I think we should be going to the ballot because we want to choose a leadership or elect a leadership that will help galvanize the nation collectively on the way forward. And therefore, the element of national cohesion is going to play a very central role, because there are a lot of angry people out there, and they need to be talked to. They need to be encouraged to realize that democracy is not about revenge.
It's about winners and losers.
It's about putting in leadership people you want to serve you effectively. So I think that needs to be taken into account, and I would focus on that.
Right.
Then I must immediately send a message to the investors that our economy must be stable, must be a growing economy, must be an economy that will excite the Kenyan investor and excite the foreign investor. Absolutely essential.
Right.
And this means that you must have a government that will inspire stability, confidence locally and internationally. And that is what my government would offer.
Right. Any other area of great expectation that Kenyans should have when Musalia is in office? Is there any other particular area you want Kenyans to now anticipate?
I want us, of course, we'll be going into sectoral areas,
right.
And in the sectoral areas, to be honest, when you look at the Vision 2030, I must give it to the people who put it together. By and large, it's a good economic blueprint. And they have key projects there that one would need to fulfill. whether you're looking at the LAPSET project, the LAMU project, it's part of the Vision 2030. Whether you're looking at the rail, the standard rail that we hope will be there to deal with Mombasa to Uganda, all these are critical areas that would really do a lot of wonders for our economy. But if you go into sectoral areas, I want to focus on education. Something good was started by the NAC government, by the Kibaki regime, and that is the free primary education, where they allocate 1,200 shillings per child. But of course, once this is transmitted through the banks and what have you, yes, and the charges go through, perhaps the net to the child comes to about 900 shillings per child. But I want us to do more. Our constitution now describes basic education as being from pre-primary, primary up to fourth form. We are promising that our government would make sure that teachers, pre-primary school teachers, are catered for, they are paid for from the public coffers, and our children can have an opportunity to go up to Form 4 with the support of the public, and they don't have to pay for it. This is important.
How will you pay for this?
Before I get there, this is important because if you look at what has happened with the results of the KCP, and they're just out, it's current, perhaps 60% of young children between the age of 14 and maximum 16 have been guillotined. Guillotined in the sense that they may not be able to
It's the end of the road for them.
Go to secondary school. Now, if you're guillotining young children of that age, you're condemning them to the labor market. They go in as child labor.
Unprepared,
unskilled. That is not what we want to do for our country. We can fund this because we can stop pilferage. We have seen that. We have seen where projects have been talked about, funds allocated, and in the course of a financial year, those projects do not take off.
White elephants.
Because people are not prepared. Some could be white elephants. So if we plan well, we can fund this program.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm talking from a position of having been in the Ministry of Finance. I know we can realign our resources and be able to put our money where it touches our people more.
So as I close this session, now that Kenyans have got to meet you, tell me about this safe pair of hands going forward. Give me a message for the voter now so that you can assure them as they're tagging you with a safe pair of hands. Is there any particular assurance or any other promise you need to give the voters looking at you now?
Well, I want to tell the Kenyan voter that I do not want to rule you. I want to serve you. I want to be able to work for you, dedicate my time for you. I am not a vindictive individual. I'm a peacemaker. I was part of the healing process. I was part of the Kofi Annan process to try and bring stability in a country when there was a lot of tension. I want to be able to offer my services as we move ahead to provide that stability. I want to be predictable. I want to be a leader that honors his word once you have made it. And that is why I say I'm a safe pair of hands. You would not be expecting strange movements from me. You would be expecting consultation, participation, and honesty in my public service to you.
Great. We'll get to review this as we go along. I'd be happy to always check, maybe quarterly, and see if your hands have remained safe or they've become porous.
They will be safe.
They'll remain safe.
They will remain safe.
Right. Well, I'm very glad to have you talk about this. And as you say, sector-based, you will have time to go through by through. The youth are still looking at you very eagerly. Unemployment remains quite an issue. All these areas, people will be looking at you for answers.
Yeah, by the way, let me just quickly touch on something. There's some comments I've seen there that we will be able to create so many jobs in a year. You know, you have to look at it in the context of, will there be stability? At what rate is your economy growing? Because some of the figures that are being bandied, that you'll be able to create 1 million jobs in a year or something, you have to be very careful, because your growth, the growth of the economy, must be such that it's growing at 10% and above, to be able to deliver those kind of things. So I'd want to say that our blueprint, when we bring it out there, our policies, they'll be very realistic. We will set targets that are achievable, because in a game of politics, particularly if you want to be taken seriously, you must promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise.
I want to wish you well.
Asante sana.
We'll be watching. We'll speak to you again, probably at the brink of it, and just see how close you are to getting the Kenyan vote to be president. Thank you for being with us tonight. And this was your chance to meet Musalia Mudavadi. He has told you he's a safe pair of hands. It's time for you to decide if he will be your next president. Tomorrow we'll be at Strathmore. Who is going to be the governor of Nairobi? As we continue setting the pace, election will be always covered comprehensively on this channel. Choice 2013 is what KTN is going to be showing you every day. My name is Louis. Thank you for watching.
Good evening. Let's talk business. My name is Boni Tunya. Rwanda is a country making significant economic strides. According to the 2012 World Doing Business report, Rwanda is the world's 52nd most attractive investment destination. Much of this is down to how the country's government has broken trade barriers, encouraging as many businesses to open up. Michael Karanja was recently in Rwanda and filed this report.
In the context of global economic difficulty, Rwanda has managed to create its own opportunities, attracting a significant amount of new investments. By the end of 2012, Rwanda had registered $1.1 billion in terms of investment made into the country. According to the Rwanda Development Board, much of this is down to the government introducing new policies that reduced redundancies within ministries, offering attractive incentives, as well as eliminating bottlenecks that had bogged down entrepreneurs.
In terms of reforms, basically related to starting businesses. We used to have company incorporation made in more than 30 days. But since last year, we are now implementing 6 hours to have your company incorporated in Rwanda.
The country's economic blueprint is anchored on the Vision 2020 plan. With the country's market virtually untapped, it provides investors with prospects of big returns. Tie that into President Paul Kagame through his government in pitching the country as a virgin market for investments ready to do business with the world. Through the Rwanda Private-Public Dialogue mechanism, efficient forums for discussion and policy advocacy representing the voice of all stakeholders concerned are provided. The RDB ensures that policies and reform designed provide the private sector with the best environment to grow while catering for government interest.
Construction definitely is the first booming sector, but we are also having tourism that is also boosting. We have mining sector. We do have a lot of minerals that actually are calling for opportunities in terms of value addition.
While the Kenyan economy remains the strongest and most vibrant in the East African community, there are some lessons to be learned from Rwanda that could be applied to spur economic growth. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
Kenya's central bank sold an undisclosed amount of dollars early on Tuesday to support the local currency after it weakened to a new year low, strong importer demand for the greenback. Now, traders said the shilling fell 0.4% to touch an intra-day low of about 87.80 buying and 88 flat selling to the dollar, last touched on January the 5th, 2011, when it hit 89 flat. Now, it recovered to trade at about 87.50 buying and 87.70 selling after the central bank sold dollars. It was still being quoted at the same level. The central bank has pumped in dollars dollars during the 7 different trading sessions so far this year to support the shilling. Now, traders further said the shilling had come under pressure from oil importers buying dollars to meet their end-month supplies. Now, private equity firms Fidelity Capital Partners and Interan Capital are set to merge in a move that will see the new entity invest in up to 3 billion shillings in the East African region. Nairobi-based In Return and Accra-based Fidelity are set to amalgamate their operations by March, and the new company will be branded to Jacaranda Partners, which has stakes in both firms. Jacaranda Partners plans to raise an estimated $75 million by the end of half of the 2013 year, and the money will be invested in small and medium-sized businesses in East Africa. Now, the finances will be raised from development financial institutions like Norway's North Fund and the African Development Bank that are keen on financing growth on SMEs in the continent. East Africa has become an investment hotbed for private equity firms seeking double-digit returns in the back of rapid economic growth.
Two things, and I think the most important one is under the new platform, we will be able to raise a $75 million fund, and that's big news for our SME entrepreneurs, because they will not only have access to capital, which is one of the key challenges that they face in their development agenda. So funding is one important characteristic of this merger, and second, they will now have access to expertise. Jacaranda brings on board very experienced private equity practitioners who have been in the private equity space for combined 100 years.
And finally, some interesting news. The Chinese government has reiterated its commitment to further development activities in Kenya over the coming years. This was said it was aimed at enhancing foreign and programs in a move expected to promote transition and upgrading projects contracting in Kenya. They're speaking today at a press conference in the Chinese embassy in Nairobi. Shifan Wu, spokesman of the Chinese embassy in Kenya, said that his government will make efforts with Kenya to further enhance cooperation in the fields of politics, economy and trade, culture and education. Wu also noted that at the press conference that his government had offered to provide $20 billion worth of credit line to the African countries to assist them in developing infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing and small and medium-sized enterprises in the African market.
50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and Kenya. We will make joint efforts with the Kenya government to further enhance bilateral exchanges and cooperation in the fields of politics, economic and trade, culture, education, and so on. We believe that the China-Kenya relationship will continue to scale new heights.
Now, with less than 33 days to the general election, the Kenya shilling continues to lose ground to world majors. Let's now have a look at financial markets review. Well, that's all from business. We meet tomorrow at the news desk. My name is Boni Tunya. Good night.
Well, now let's look at KTN Sports today. I am Nicholas Mudimba. Athletics Kenya has postponed its elections earlier scheduled for February 20th. The polls will now be held on the 27th of February. AK Chairman Isaac Kiplagat clarified in Nairobi today that elections in all the 16 regions will be conducted on the 20th of February. Kiplagat also hinted a change of venue for the National Cross Country Championships come World Cross Country Trials from the Uhuru Gardens to another venue.
According to Athletics Kenya, the change of election dates from the 20th to the 27th will give all 16 AK regions ample time to internalize the contents of the proposed new Athletics Kenya constitution. The regions will also have enough time to conduct their own elections. AK will adopt the delegate system of voting, where each region will produce 30 delegates.
We want everybody to understand the procedure so that there are no challenges. We don't want anybody to go to challenge us anywhere. And they must in tandem with the new national constitution, the Sports Act, it's not now a bill, it's an act of parliament, and of course our new constitution.
The National Cross Country Championships on February the 16th, which also doubles up as the trials for the World Cross Country Championships in Poland, could be held in another venue other than the historical Uhuru Gardens. AK says that athletes from the disciplined forces who used the course recently complained that it may not be friendly to the runners.
The grounds have become very, very bad. Too many potholes, too much waterlogged areas. During the chest, I think prisons, championships and others, quite a number of athletes left their shoes, in the mud.
The National Championships is an IAAF permit event and winners will pocket a prize money of $2,500. Athletes from Ethiopia, South Africa, New Zealand and Britain have been invited.
We gave them up to tomorrow to confirm. The only one that I can say we invited and has been declined is our neighbor Uganda, because they're saying the date they are also going to be selecting their team for the World Cross Country Championships on the 16th when we are running ours.
The trials will be used to select a team to represent the country in Bydgoszcz, Poland at the World Cross Country Championships. Victor Ogale, KTN Sport.
Kenya will be without Inter Milan's McDonald Mariga during her international friendly against Libya in Tunis next week. Mariga has been out injured and just recently returned to action and has been left out by caretaker coach James Nandwa due to fitness-related issues. Brand Mandela, who is nursing a knee injury, has also been omitted from the travelling squad. The coach has drafted in Ulinzi's defender Mnandi Mulingi and midfielder Charles Okwemba from AFC Leopards. Others expected into the Moi Sports Center Kasarani are Joaquin Satudu, Humphrey Mieno from Azam in Tanzania, and David Geteri from South Africa. The European best players, led by captain Dennis Oliech, Victor Mugubi, Ayub Timbe, and Arnold Origi, will fly directly to Tunis from the bases on Monday after the weekend league assignment. Stars are using this match against the highly ranked Libya side to boost the FIFA ranking after sitting out of the Africa Cup of Nations. And that's it for KTN Sports today. I'm Nicholas Mudima, but there also other action in the Barclays Premier League where Manchester City and of course Stoke are in action. Have a good night.
Nothing rewards like a Guinness. Guinness, reach for greatness.
Weather forecast brought to you by Mutin Doom Power Guard.
cockroach killer.
Right, we're almost done, but not before we look at the big question tonight. We asked you if you're happy with IEBC's handling of election preparations so far. 54% of you are happy. 46% of you are not happy. Eric, maybe you want to sample what they say?
Yes, I will. I'll start with Iris from Kisumu. You say, yes, I am really impressed by what the IEBC is doing, working independently and very open in its operations. I have confidence in their chair. There is a no here from Ayub from Moyale. He says IEBC has failed to put on justice to those who stormed the IEBC offices, and the irregularities practiced during the primaries have not been addressed fully. I wish I could have read all of them. Thank you very much for your responses and for watching tonight's bulletin. My name is Eric Njoka. Good night.
Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu.